Hello everyone, I'm Brian. Today I'm doing a reaction to Is Corporate Life Stripping Workers of Their Humanity? Acharya. So I was thinking about this just a little bit. I was trying to get everything set up in this blinding light. But I have two minds in this. And what I mean by that is I say I have multiple minds, as in I just think about every perspective as I can. So I have my mind prior to watching Eastern philosophy and mine after Eastern philosophy, because those two have become prevalent in my mind at the moment. So to answer this question in my mind prior to watching this video, my answer would be no, it's not. Some of you might say, why? You know, people are working 40 hours a week. They're barely living a life. Their life is eat, sleep, work. No time for life. And my answer to that from the mind prior to watching these videos is that it's their choice. They don't have to work that kind of life if they don't want to, but they choose to. So it's not necessarily that corporate life is stripping their humanities away. They're choosing to work that. So, and this is where, if they're saying that, oh yeah, my job is stripping away my humanity, they are giving their power up to their job, instead of taking responsibility of their actions. Which, if they say, I am choosing this to do this, I am choosing to do this, meaning that they're saying that I have the power and I am doing this. So that they take responsibility, therefore they have the power to stop anytime that they want or continue anytime that they want. It empowers people when you can take responsibility for your actions that you do. My mind after the fact, is corporate life stripping away their humanity? No. And I can go with the mind as far as I am at in the moment and say, corporate life is Maya. Simple enough. You know, it's your Brahman, your Atman, you're unaffected by all of this. And I can even go back just prior to, well, I won't say prior to the mind, even without even using Atman or Brahman. It's just the sheer fact of going a bit of a mixture of the minds there, that actually the mixture of the minds would be literally just the two that I just said. That, you know, corporate life itself doesn't do anything to humanity. You're having this thought that it is, but it really isn't. Again, it goes back to your choice, but at the same time, if you genuinely, I can't say that if you're enlightened, because that's not going to help. Most people are not. I am not. But the way I look at it, it's a job. Enjoy it. I guess I like my job. I enjoy it. Don't get me wrong, I don't like it all the time, but you know, for the most part, I enjoy it. I guess if the job is really bad, you can always quit and get a different job. It might pay less, but it could be more enjoyable. It's all up to you. It's your choice. But if you look at it as I think a certain perspective, you can say that it is getting the things that you need done right now. Perhaps working to a better goal, better achievement. By working this corporate life. Maybe you grind out this corporate life to be able to retire early because you're making a lot of money. It's a job that you don't like, but you make so much money that in 10 years you can retire. Or you could be working up the ladder so that you can make that money or get to a job that you like. Again, there's many ways to look at it. You always have the power to do it. You have the power to stay or do something about it. And again, I can't go with the furthest mind in terms of that it's Maya, it's an illusion. You know, if you detach yourself from your feelings, that you realize that you can do this, or that, oh, if you're enlightened, you know you can be at peace and bliss or in contentment and still do it. But it's a bit, I don't want to use that because I think it's out of reach for a lot of people. I'm not going to sit here and say that I am bliss at all, but I can do a lot of mundane jobs because I look at it in a positive sense. I worked at a Walmart, unloading trucks in the heavy, unloading trucks, like all the stuff that's loaded into the stores, they come in trucks. You have to unload it, like all the heavy water, the like detergents and everything, and it's hot in there. There's no fan, and on the cold winter days, it's freezing in there, and you're like working up a sweat, and it's freezing. If you stop, you get cold. If you work, you sweat. So, but I looked at it in a positive way, and how did I look at it? As a gym. I need to hit the gym, so I just keep lifting and going and going and going. So that's the way I looked at like mundane workout heavy tasks. It's a free membership to a gym. I get paid in this gym. So a matter of perspective how you view things in life. So let's continue now. Ooh, I said a lot.
Namaste Acharya ji, namaste Professor.
5 minutes.
I watched your recent video, Loving Your Fake Lifestyle. In that video you used two words. One is abuse of consciousness, and another was corporates are dehumanizing the employees. In that context, I wanted to ask you, this dehumanization actually is not only happening in corporates, but I think it is something that starts with the family itself. And the second thing is the abuse of consciousness. We are aware about the gross forms of abuse of consciousness, but we don't know much about the subtle forms of abuse of consciousness. This is one part of the question. Second part is, this is like little paradoxical. Now we see the world is moving towards destruction and climate change. Now all the students who are studying in higher institutions, they are going to join all the corporates that are part of the problem. So how do we help these students to make them aware that where they're going and investing their life is actually pushing their contribution of their life towards the destruction of the planet? And at the same time, you could also talk about the subtle forms of abuse of consciousness.
Okay, this is the reason why I like to state my thoughts in the very beginning, because if I heard that, it's like, oh, that's a contradiction to my thoughts. Better not put it out there. No, I'm going to put it out there, 100%. And I'm going to put this one out there, too. Mind you, I wouldn't say the corporations themselves are part of the problem. Mind you, that we, the people, are the creation of the corporations. And what I mean by that is that think of your favorite brand, whatever it may be. Do you think of your favorite brand that's a major corporation? Now think about that. How did it become a major corporation? It didn't create a product and then all of a sudden, poof, it became a major corporation just by creating a product that no one bought. I mean, that's not how corporations work. Corporations don't make a product, millions of it, and then never sell it, and then make profits by not selling it. That's not how corporations work. Corporations work by making a product that people want, that people buy, and continue to buy. That's how corporations make their money. So you could say in a lot of sense that we the people are kind of contributing to this factor. But at the same time, a lot of these corporations have made our lives a lot easier. We cannot just look at the negative. And it sucks, don't get me wrong. Like there's a lot of corporations out there that are very bad and who do a lot of underhanded things. We could say that for sure. But at the same time, you can work for these corporations, get the money. If they pay you good money, you can then start your own business or to fund something that's trying to better the planet. I mean, how else? No matter whether corporations or even mom and pop stores or whatever, they're going to be doing the same thing. It's just that corporations can do it in a mass scale. If this corporation doesn't, if no corporation exists, you can have millions of mom and pop stores everywhere doing the contribution of the pollution of the planet is going to be the equivalent, just because you need so many of these mom and pop stores. It's just that you can't say this one particular mom and pop store that's everywhere is contributing so much pollution, just because every mom and pop store, can only contribute in their own way. They're not all linked together. But if you, I don't know how else to describe that, but I hope you understand what I'm saying, is that just because there's one corporation that has many stores, you can say this one corporation. But if all the stores are still there, but no corporation, all the stores are individually owned, they would produce roughly about the same amount of pollution. It could be more, it could be less, because corporations have to uphold their image for the most part, so they cannot look bad to the public. If they do, they could lose lots of money, so they have to look spick and span. They have to be family friendly, they have to be eco-friendly, etc., etc. Mom and pop stores don't have that kind of regulation, you could say, to a degree. Like, if it's a single mom and pop store, no one has this, oh, they must be, clean and they can't do this and that. So, and again, I'm not saying all corporations are like this, but they do kind of have to hold the higher standards because they are a corporation. They have a lot more eyes looking at them versus mom and pop stores. And so again, me personally, I don't believe corporations to themselves to be inherently bad. We created corporations, as in we the people, because we buy their products. We like their products. We give them our money. If we didn't give them our money, they would not exist. They provide businesses, they provide jobs, they provide healthcare to people. People would not, and there's not a lot of people that would have jobs today if it weren't for certain corporations. Again, I'm not sitting praising corporations, even though it looks like I am for sure. But it's the truth of the matter. Again, I'm not saying they're all great. I'm not saying all of them are spick and span, but still, we have to acknowledge the realities of how they're created and what they provide to the society itself. And of course, we should hold them to a standard that should be equal to everyone, but I am speaking way too much. Anyways, about the abuse of consciousness, I don't know anything about that one.
You see, to use human thought, feelings, energy, any resources available to the human being for any end objective other than liberation is actually abuse of consciousness. When you are physically alive, you are said to be conscious, right?
Yeah.
So abuse of consciousness is simply abuse of life. To use your life for any final purpose other than liberation from various kinds of bondages, including your biological instincts and ignorance, is what is abuse of consciousness. What is gross abuse of consciousness? What is subtle abuse of consciousness? What is gross, what is subtle? That which the eyes can easily perceive and the ears can easily hear and the skin can touch is said to be gross. Whereas that which can only be imagined, ideated or conceptualized is said to be subtle. So when you are using material in the hope that material will give you lasting fulfillment, that is gross abuse. When you are dabbling in theories and concepts and ideas and think that ideology is of some kind, that which we call as love, that too is an ideology, because that is not real love, that's a thought, that's an idea, that's an image. So when you go about this usual business of love, that is a subtle abuse of consciousness.
Real quick with that one. God, I know I talked a lot, but oh god, I feel bad. Anyways, about talking a lot. That's interesting because man, he's. I wonder if that guy that talked about the subtle abuse of consciousness now thinks like, oh my gosh, I didn't think love was a subtle abuse of consciousness. And also when he was talking about anything other than liberation as a subtle abuse of consciousness, it's like, wow, that's I thought of two things there. Should you do nothing in life then other than to achieve enlightenment? Meaning that don't work, don't cook, don't have a family, don't love anyone, just focus on yourself and enlightenment only? Very selfish. And then it's like, that doesn't seem right. I don't like that. Then the second thought came in and said, no, you can do those things. Because he said detachment, something along the lines of detachment. It's like, no, you can do those things, but do not get attached. That's it. I said, okay, that's different then. That one you can do your corporate life. You can be with people, enjoy people's company, but not to have attachment. I like that one better.
And when it comes to the question regarding corporates, that students pass out and then they serve the same corporations that are directly or indirectly responsible for much of the tragedy today unfolding on this planet. Well, the answer should be obvious. Before the students sit for their placements, there has to be a sufficiently long workshop or a trimester long course that deals with the various industries and if needed takes up case studies pertaining to the regular employers. Why not? Don't we take up case studies that deal with specific companies? But there we want to know how well they are doing in their marketing strategy, how their SHRM is proceeding, or what kind of cost accounting or financial management systems do they use. We should also have case studies that take up, for example, their environmental record. Students should know the firm that they are opting for, to what extent is it life friendly? To what extent is your employer consciousness friendly? Students should know that. But that kind of case study is neither written nor taught, whereas that should be a very important thing. It is very possible that if you open up the entire kundali of a very lucrative employer, the employer might have to return empty-handed from the placement cell. Or maybe I am just being wishful. Maybe the students would still go for that company in spite of knowing everything.
Yeah, I mean, I was coming to that, the conflict of interest, my career goal versus how, to what extent I can actually accommodate the organization that is involved.
You see, in an ideal sense, obviously you should not spend a second at an improper place. But then life is not ideal. Ideas are just thoughts. We might seek freedom from all our constraints, but our immediate fact is that we are operating within constraints. So with all your honesty, and only you can answer it fully, with all your honesty, try your best to use your constraints in a way that your constraints are loosened. Right now I am speaking in constraints. My fellow professor, my friend here, he too is speaking in certain constraints. We started at a specific time. We'll have to end at a specific time. And there are 1,000 other practical and worldly constraints at every moment, wherever you are, whatever you are doing. The goal therefore has to be to operate in a way within your constraints that you make your way out of the constraints. As they say, if you are lost in a thick, dark jungle, what do? You'll have to move within the jungle.
Within the jungle.
But you have to move within the jungle in a way that takes you
Out of it.
out of the jungle. The jungle is there, we cannot wish it away. At the same time, we cannot turn this into an alibi. What do? I was born in a jungle. So all my life, I just kept wandering in the jungle. That's a poor excuse.
Okay, so last thing, this dehumanization, which starts from the family, institution of family, where the family only conditions the child, saying you only belong to these people. Then goes to the education, where he is constantly told you have to only work for yourself. And then when he comes in that kind of a state, it's like very difficult to even realize for that person to what extent the conditioning has gone into.
Then the ones who have realized must try to make it easier for the ones who have not realized but have the potential to realize. Right? Yeah. So obviously the way the child is born and brought up, it is very difficult for him to just know on his own. We said a while back that even if you live for 1,000 years, Vidya will not automatically come to you. You will have to put in dedicated effort. But then if there are people who have begun opening their eyes to whatever extent, it is then their responsibility to create conditions in which the child, the next child born, has it easier than they had. So create institutions, modify our habits.
Real quick with that one, actually. Interestingly enough, I agree with what he says there about how we generally make, future generations' lives easier. But you look at the Western world, and life is very easy for the most part in the Western world, especially in America. But yet, look how people have turned out. Not all of them, again, but I believe it's a growing matter. As in, you see a lot of people, at least obviously you only see the negative stuff online, for the most part. You sometimes can see the good stuff, but people like drama, just in general. So you see like people who are clearly look like they're entitled, clearly had things so easy in their life because life has become so easy. Because previous generations suffered to make life easier for the next generation, and that continues on and on and on. I guess it gets to a point where it goes back down to more suffering. And what I mean by this is that, down low is suffering or difficulties in life. Then as you work your way up, easier and easier and easier. But then it curves back down, as in life is getting harder now. I'm wondering if there's that point where life gets too easy, that the generation that's born at the most easiest of life are unappreciative of how easy their life is, that life become harder. And what I mean is, like, for example, imagine if you never have to cook your food because there's a machine or something that cooks your food. Imagine if all of a sudden that machine's taken away. Eating food becomes so much harder because you've never trained to cook. You don't know how to cook or start a fire. Life all of a sudden becomes super hard. If you never ever had to find out how to get fresh water, how to hunt for your food or forage for food, vegetables or anything like this, you don't know how to plant vegetables. Who has gardens mostly in the United States, but who knows how to grow them? Who knows that you need nutrients in the soil so that you can grow fruits or vegetables? Imagine a life where you don't ever have to think about that. Life is so easy. And because life is so easy, they become resentful and ungrateful. It's a really interesting thing that I can see. I kind of have a duality of life and somewhat of a duality of mind, kind of. And this is the things that I realize. There's many more things I don't realize. But yes, I mean, I'm sure most parts of the world you can see a developed area. And you can start, I almost bit my tongue. You can start to see people like this who have it much easier than you do, or much easier than someone else, and you can see that they are becoming ungrateful for the things that they have much easier than.
The curricula, there is so much that the child goes through.
Yeah.
Try taking care of it. There is no other way. There is no other way. Otherwise, the system is very much a closed and self-contained one. The cycle of ignorance will continue for 1,000,000 years, and there is nothing within the cycle that will disrupt it. Right? It can just continue. You have tribesmen who have been living in a particular way, completely unchanged, since the beginning of civilization.
Yeah.
Nothing has changed. The indigenous people.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And not only have they not changed, many of them actively and very aggressively resist any external contact. If you want to get in touch with them, you will be met with bows and arrows.
Yes.
So that's the way of Prakriti, physical nature. The responsibility, therefore, belongs to those who have begun knowing. Those who do not know are also free of responsibility.
Just if I can just add one sentence on nature and how the businesses are sort of assaulting the nature and all that. I was only wondering, I keep saying this to my students all the time. This whole idea, let us protect nature, is a Western lens to the solving the problem. In fact, I keep telling my students, I discuss also in my courses sometimes very seriously and so on. I think the only education we need, nature needs absolutely no helping hand from ordinary mortals like us. My favorite example is in 3 hours in 2013, a place called Kedarnath, the clock was owned by 150 years. That's all nature can take its own act. So I think the education that we need, which we are also trying quite seriously, I think we should know that we need to be very responsibly, that Paraspara Bhava, which in Gita they talks about, I think that's the kind of thing that maybe, I will just add that on the top of this conversation.
That's quite fundamental to the whole thing. You see, we have that ego. And that ego, to address its own lack of contentment, wants to use the entire world. Everything exists so that it can be used by me. So we use all the physical nature, right? And the feeling is of control. I will control it. I will control it for my own welfare, right? I am smart. I am wise. I am not doing well. I am internally bankrupt, and yet I am very smart and very wise. So I'll decide how to use the entire planet. But after a while, it becomes very difficult to avoid seeing that I have totally destroyed the planet. So what do? I still operate from the point of my doership. I say I was the one who destroyed the planet, and now I remaining who I am, I will redress the destruction. You are the destroyer. How will you suddenly become the savior? It's just that the doership knows no limits. Sometimes you say that I am hacking the jungle down. Sometimes you say, oh, I am now going for reforestation. So deforestation and then reforestation. So he's saying here, you leave the forest alone. You neither need to deforest nor reforest. You leave it alone, it will take care of itself. Your reforestation, mind these words, is probably as bad as your deforestation, or maybe even worse, When you are such a drunkard in the internal sense, your consciousness is totally deluded. Do you even know the right meaning of help or redressal of a grievance? Do you really know what the forest needs? A fundamental question. Have you ever known what you really need? Do you know what you need in life? Then how do you know what the forest needs? But the ego and its arrogance know no limits. So you say, I do not know my own needs, but I know what the forest needs, so I'll go and reforest. Your reforestation might actually be worse than your deforestation. Why can't you just keep your hands away, hands off? That's what is needed. But that's something we cannot tolerate to live with. The realization that I am a sick person and my first duty is to take care of myself. I'm not someone who should go about doing this and that in the planet, winning territories or helping people or this, that. You are in no position to help anybody. Not that helping is bad. But if the surgeon himself is in a drunken state, God save the surgery.
Oh, wow.
Not even God can save us.
Okay. Real quick with that one, it's a very interesting last part there. So, with Save the Soil and with Sadhguru, essentially that's what he's doing is kind of, in a sense, reforestation. Now, mind you, there is the right way to do it. Because if we do not, I think we should do reforestation, but obviously it has to be done correctly. The only reason why I say, don't get me wrong, and what he says is absolutely true as well, as in, you know, if you leave nature alone, it will repair itself. But we can assist it along, kind of like how we assist our body with medicine. The medicine is not going to cure us, but it can help us get a little bit better by easing our pain a little bit so that we can rest more and help the body. And don't get me wrong, like, there could be, I don't know if we ever got to a point where the forest or say nature itself can't recover unless we assist it. I'm not sure. I'm trying to think of all the entirety of my memory if there's been any instance of that. The only thing I can think, the first thing I thought of is like Nevada, Las Vegas, Nevada, where it's literally a desert, but it turned into a very prosperous city. Like, deserts aren't really known for that because there's literally nothing there, too hot, very dry, no one wants to live there, but yet Vegas exists. Now, don't get me wrong, it's probably really bad because they're draining water from other places. I'm not sure. But the whole point is, we should take responsibilities for our actions for sure. If you do reforestation wrong, yes, you could damage, you could end up causing more harm than good because you're not planting the correct foliage in those areas. You can plant invasive species, which is very, very bad, extremely bad. So again, reforestation can be a good thing if done properly, but can be devastating if done wrongly. I don't think anyone would disagree there. If you plant the how do I say, trees and vegetation that's normally there, it should not cause any harm. Again, you can plant all the things and some of them will die because the place they were planted, perhaps it's not the best spot for them, but that happens naturally in the forest anyway. Not every single tree survives to be very, very big or very, very tall. Some die the second they hit the ground because of the canopy of the forest, you know, blocking out the sun. You see certain vines that wrap around trees to go all the way to the very top so it can get some sunlight. They're all adapted to their situation that they're in. Those who are adapted will survive, of course, and those who are not, well, they're no longer there because they could not survive the invasive species of the trees that are now naturally there. Because obviously animals, plants survive in their own special way. Those that don't survive are no longer there. Those that do survive have adapted to other plants or animals or trees so that they grow, become successful. That's, I like to think, pretty basic. Again, a lot of talking in this one for some odd reason. But anyways, again, there's right ways to do things and wrong ways to do things. But you can leave the forest and nature alone and it will, generally speaking, heal back on its own. Eventually, it can heal back everything because you can look at a lot, like, I think of this one drive where I go. There was a building there. It looks like a big storage building, but it's all rusted. And looks like it's condemned because it looks like it's falling apart. And nature has pretty much reclaimed it. There's vines growing over it. The metal itself is so rusted that any more rust in certain areas, I'm sure it would crumble. Certain parts would crumble and fall, and that rust is being eaten away and being given back to the ground as nutrients. Iron in the ground. But yes, and then I'm sure vines and trees and all that has kind of taken over. Eventually, I mean, mostly grass, and then eventually trees will grow over it. So yes, nature can heal itself and reclaim itself. Absolutely. But we can assist it in a good way if we do it right, and only right. But again, it's up to you whether you assist it correctly or just to leave it alone. Honestly, if you're not specialized in reforestations and stuff, it's probably best to leave it alone. Again, I'm just throwing my ideas out there. Interestingly, did talk about corporate life a little bit. So kind of recap a little bit. Be responsible for the choices that you make in life. Have the power to say that I am doing this, I choose to do this because I need to do this, and have a good reason why you're doing it, so that you know why you're doing what you're doing. I am working this corporate life because I need to pay the bills. If I don't work this corporate life, I'll be homeless. At least this will give you the power to say, I am choosing to do this. Instead of saying, I've given up my will to the corporation and I'm doing this because I need to do this. Instead say that I'm doing this because I'm doing this because I need to do this because I need to survive. As in an empowerment, I need to do this, as opposed to a depowerment. I don't know how to describe that. I described it in the very beginning pretty much. So anyways, that's the end of this video. If you like my content, please consider subscribing. Thumbs up, thumbs down, down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next vid.